Welcome to the Script Mistress podcast, where we dive into the heart of storytelling and bring the magic of screenwriting to life. I am your host, Amber Bosworth, and today we are embarking on an extraordinary journey. I'm so excited. Happy New Year to all my writers. We have a new time. I'm bringing a new kind of feeling and vibe, hopefully, to the podcast for everybody. But really, to keep yourself informed about podcast events and challenges that I run, make sure to join my mailing list at thescriptmistress.com. Additionally, you can find this entire episode on video at thescriptmistress.com/scene 51. Yes, 51, where you'll also discover a free download waiting for you on that page. I also have this available on the Script Mistress YouTube channel, and I'll provide that link in my show notes down below. You can see that. I do run a monthly short screenwriting challenge. January is now open for registration. It runs from January 17th to the 21st. So participants have 5 days to write a brand new 5-page screenplay based on a prompt given on the first day of the challenge. The winner will receive $150, and every writer submitting a completed script, it doesn't have to be the full 5 pages, will receive detailed feedback. All this is included in just a $15 entry fee. Discover more at thescriptmistress.com/ink to screen, the number 2. So don't miss out. Sign up now. Start January. Start 2024 writing a brand new script. You never know what might be inspired. Now, again, Happy New Year. As we enter this new year, what better way to start than by returning to the beginning? Whether you're a seasoned writer or just discovered the incredible world of screenwriting, it's always valuable to revisit the fundamentals. That's why I'm thrilled to launch this 8-episode series dedicated to the basics of screenwriting. And today we begin with week 1. This is going to be the screenwriter's journey begins. Now, every day, I know I have a lot of seasoned writers with me and listen and hang out and join my challenges, but every day somebody else is discovering the joy of writing screenplays and that they write in that medium. They don't necessarily write in novel form or in prose or in nonfiction, but they really like writing screenplays. And you have to start somewhere, right? Why not let this be the place for you? So let's start right off the bat. What is screenwriting? At its core, screenwriting is the art and craft of writing scripts for films, television shows, or even video games. Let's not forget video games. This is not untapped, but another resource for screenwriters to enter into the world of screenwriting. It's more than just writing. I think that's where a lot of people get a little confused when they submit scripts or they write screenplays. It's visual storytelling, and you really have to change the way you write. If you're coming from writing prose or fiction, you have to change the way you write. Screenwriting is a whole different way of writing, of storytelling visually. A screenwriter's job is to create the blueprint for a visual narrative. They set the scene, direct the action, introduce the characters, and craft the dialogue that brings a story to life on the screen. But why is screenwriting so crucial in filmmaking? Well, imagine a film as a building. If so, the screenplay is its foundation. It's where everything starts. With a strong script, a film can stand. The screenplay guides the actors, the director, the cinematographer, and the entire crew. It's the map they follow to bring a story to its full cinematic potential. Now, little disclaimer here. If you are a brand new screenwriter and you are someone who gets really attached to your work, maybe this isn't right for you. Just hear me out. A screenplay, yes, it is the foundation, but again, it's like an outline for the script that can take many, many forms. Maybe you're building a foundation for a 2-story house and it ends up turning into be a large mansion or even a rec center, something completely different than what you may have envisioned to begin with, but it's still your idea that's running it. However, the screenplay is there. Once it's given to a producer or a director, it can go anywhere. and do anything. You can't be so attached to it. That's why it's a little bit different than writing a novel. You put your novel out there and it's there, for everybody to read your words as you intended them to be. However, screenwriting, you get it out there, it is intended to be made into a film. And when it does, it can take on many iterations. So it's really about letting go of the ego and just being happy of creating something, an idea, and hopefully some of that dialogue and that hard work does make it through. So now, a screenplay, sometimes called a treatment or even storyboard by some producers, is a detailed outline of your story. It encompasses character descriptions, plot points, dialogues, and action scenes. The aim? To create a concise yet comprehensive guide that ensures everyone involved in the project understands the direction and vision of the film. Of course, some things, again, might not be exactly the way you wrote them, but your vision and direction is still within the core of the film itself, and that's really important. Mastering the art of screenwriting, especially with proper script formatting, is about getting the art of storytelling. It involves understanding your characters completely understanding your characters, their journeys, and their goals. It's about knowing what happens in each scene and providing extreme clarity as screenplays demand precise and vivid descriptions. Now, this is what sets writing a screenplay apart from writing a novel, because we don't get to be inside the head of that character. Everything that you write has to be shown visually. The audience has to be able to see it. He could be thinking something, but we don't know what he's thinking unless you put in that internal dialogue, which you don't always want to do. You want to write it in a visual way so that we can see it. And the actions have to be very, very descriptive so that the director can see it and he can put that on the screen for you. Let's talk about the essential elements of a successful screenplay. Plot. Understanding your protagonist's problem, motivation, and backstory is critical. Start by defining your main character's core issue and why it matters. This is brought to you by first kind of introducing their life in the beginning of what it's called is like setting the scene of their life and how their day-to-day life goes before you introduce any conflict or any change later on in your film, like right after about maybe 10 minutes. Characterization. Dive into why your protagonist is driven towards their goals. Is your character a hero or a villain? Detailing their traits helps readers visualize them very clearly. Dialogue. Essential to any screenplay, dialogues should be natural and purposeful, moving the story forward and deepening character connections. This is really difficult. Dialogue is usually a pain point for a lot of writers because it's really hard to make sure that each character has a very distinct voice and it's not just coming out of your head and it's not just your voice all the time. So that's where having really good dialogue, intriguing dialogue is very essential and is a really amazing skill once you master it. Structure. Screenplays require a solid structure to keep the narrative organized. This includes a story arc, building tension towards the climax and resolution. Where you see a lot of difficult novels or any like really great novels trying to be translated into a screenplay is because it's a different medium and we just don't have the time. Like I read a book, maybe 100 pages a week, I don't say, but I'm able to put it down and bring it back up. When you're writing a movie, you're locking that person in for the entire hour and a half to 2 hours. So you have to build that and make it very enticing and intriguing for that entire time. That's a little bit of the difference. Conflict. The heart of any screenplay. It's the challenges faced by your protagonist that keep the audience engaged and invested in your story. I have a lot of writers with my monthly challenge. Writing a 5-page screenplay is difficult, and I commend all of my writers that do it and do very well, or writers that continue to work on their craft as they do it. But a lot of my notes usually come from letting them know this needs more conflict, or it actually needs more compelling conflict. your conflict has to be enough to move, to provide that momentum. If somebody's reading this and I guess it is subject to some personal experiences, but sometimes I'm reading a script and I'm like, I don't feel like this would be something that would motivate somebody to do what's in the script. So always make sure that your conflict is very, very motivational and it's moving the story forward at all times, all times. So resolution, your story should resolve in a way that leaves your protagonist changed, offering your audience a sense of closure and satisfaction. Now, I'm not saying it has to be a happily ever after ending. It has to be a good ending, but it has to have something where your protagonist has changed in some way, whether for the good or the bad. Your audience always wants a sense of closure in some sort of form, whether it's a good ending or a bad ending, and not like a badly written ending, but in an ending that doesn't end in happily ever after. So you really want to be very careful. Resolutions, I mean, I think a lot of people get kind of stuck and they kind of rush the resolution. Don't rush the payoff. Live in it, breathe it, enjoy it. Let them enjoy the ending, because the ending, I'm like, you could be watching. Well, I mean, I have an example of a TV show that went on for years and years and years, but the last 5 minutes of that TV show killed it for me. I never want to watch that TV show again, and I loved it. But because the last 5 minutes of the very last episode after almost 10 years, I never want to watch that show again. And I feel a lot of people have that same issue. If they don't like the ending, that's all they're going to remember. It's not going to be about anything else but that ending. And it's not going to make them want to watch it again, because you're going to want to make something that people are going to watch over and over again. Theme. All right, don't limit your screenplay to one concept. Explore multiple themes to add depth and complexity to your story. A lot of that can be really centered around your villains, like maybe a backstory. Just bringing in more complexity really, really heightens your game, your script, and your story, really bringing people in, because we aren't one-dimensional. We have so many things going on in our lives that it is important to kind of reflect that in your screenplays as well. Genre. Now, whether sticking to one genre or mixing several, be clear of the type of material you create. So get really comfortable with the genre that you're writing and try to fit within those guidelines, fit into what people expect from that genre, especially starting out. When you get more advanced and you've written some movies and you've moved out there, then yes, play with those genres and play with those expected guidelines. But when you're just starting out, really learn the genre that you're writing in, get really comfortable with the tropes and everything that you're working with, so that your audience knows what to expect from it, even your producer or director that's reading it. Because if you're writing a horror, you're most likely going to get a horror director or somebody who produces horror films. But if you don't really stick to the guidelines, that's where they're not going to really know where to put your film. So that's really important. Audience, understand who you're writing for. This helps in crafting a screenplay that resonates with your target audience. Now, if you're writing a screenplay and it's like a romantic comedy, and then all of a sudden they all get butchered, I'm like, your audience is not going to be really prepared for that. And even the hardcore horror films are not really going to enjoy maybe that full romantic comedy in the beginning. Just know who you're writing for. Be very clear. Even if you have to have one specific person in mind that you're writing this for, that can really help you target and streamline your script. Your characters. Each character should bring something unique to your story, creating interesting dynamics and conflicts. This is something I think new writers really struggle with. They bring in filler characters to kind of move some of the action along, but you always want your characters in your film. You have 90 minutes to 120 minutes to tell your story and get it down. So you really want every character in your story to have a very specific purpose and requirement that moves along your story. If you just have somebody in really quick, or even somebody that you have a conversation with, your main character has a conversation with, and they never come again, then what was the point of that character? Was it just for that scene? Can we think of somebody better to get into that scene? Sorry, I'm going to get on like a whole tirade. I think even characters, I think, could be its whole thing itself. So let's move on. Style, the very last part, like fundamentals of screenwriting, style. Choose a narrative style that best suits your story, whether first person for a more intimate tale or third person for action-packed narratives. I know that kind of speaks more towards fiction writing or not, well, fiction writing, but really even in screenplays, like if you're just focusing on one central character, you're keeping that more in the first person or third person, kind of moving the story around and really getting into different characters and different stories, making it kind of more of a collective. So get really comfortable in whatever style you are or you feel that you work the best in, and just explore that and see how that goes. Now, let's talk structure. So this is another thing that's very different and can be difficult for beginning screenwriters, is the structure of screenwriting. I'm sure the first thing you thought about when you're like, what? I'm going to write a screenplay. You don't just open up a Word document and just start typing freehand. There is a certain structure. So the basic structure of a screenplay is crucial. While creativity knows no bounds, there is a standard format every screenwriter should know. Why? Because it's the language the industry speaks. Let me say that again. It's the language the industry speaks. You need to learn how to speak the language in your writing, and that comes with your format. If you have really sloppy format, you could have the best freaking movie in the world, but nobody's going to read it because they're going to look at it and they're going to be like, so locking down the format, once you lock it down, it's easy. It's second nature, and it's going to be really hard for you to read anything else or write anything else. You're like, but it's really important that you get this. A suitably formatted script shows professionalism and makes it easier for readers, producers, actors, or directors to envision your story. This is the language that they speak. They're not just novel readers. They're not just sitting around reading romance novels or anything like that. These people sit down and read scripts every single day. And if your format is off or if your format is lacking in any way, they're going to notice that, and that's all they're going to be able to focus on. So don't let that happen. It's a really simple process once you get it down. So a standard screenplay includes vital formatting elements. You have your scene headings, also known as slug lines, your action lines, character introductions, dialogue, and parentheticals. Each serves a distinct purpose. This is the very bare bones. So number one, the scene headings, also known as slug lines, if you hear that word. These are the signposts. They tell us where and when a scene takes place. Is it interior or exterior, day or night, back in time, that kind of thing. That sets your scene. Sweet, short, sweet, simple, so you don't have to put any of that in the exposition or the action lines. Action lines directly after your slug line, always. Here, you paint the picture. Describe what we see without saying we see, just describe it and what's happening. But remember, be concise and visual. Visual. Our character introductions. When a character first appears, introduce them with a brief but vivid description. This usually includes age, something very specific to how they look, if it is paramount to the story. Like describing somebody as being obese when it's not really brought up later, or letting the story know that they're obese, they have a hard time, like an obese cop. That is something relevant to the story because the cop is going to have a hard time keeping up with criminals or anything like that. So you want to really make sure it's very vital because, again, you have to hire an actor to portray this character. So you don't want to be so limiting in your description, being very specific, brown hair, brown eyes, all of that. When you can do that in a novel, you don't want to do that in a screenplay because that really limits the amount of people that you can bring in and have act that part. So you always want to kind of keep that in your mind, especially with character descriptions. You don't want to get too vivid, too descriptive. You just want to describe those things that are going to be pertinent to the story. Maybe describing what they're wearing can reveal a little bit about their character. Very tight-laced, buttoned all the way up to the top button, tight. Or somebody's very scruffy, like food stains on the hoodie or something like that. That describes a little bit more of their character than more so the physical description of the character. Dialogue. Now, this is where your characters come to life through their words. Each line of dialogue should reveal something about the character or advance the plot. Dialogue, again, I mentioned it before, dialogue is an art all its own, but here each line of dialogue should reveal something about the character or advance the plot. This is where it's a good place. You can reveal what the character's thinking. You can reveal some of the backstory in dialogue. It's a really good place. But again, be sure each character has their own voice, that how they speak, the way that it should be written, and just stick to that consistency with dialogue and characters. Parentheticals. Use these sparingly. They're the small directions. You have the character name and then little parentheticals that can be used within dialogue, guiding an actor to deliver a line. Parentheticals are basically you're directing your actors, giving them a pause, laughingly, but if you can, move it into the action. Without putting it so much under there. Let the director direct the actors. Let the actors kind of get a feel, knowing that they are sad. You don't need to say, holding back tears or don't force emotion into your characters as well. So, all right. So as we wrap up this first episode, remember, screenwriting is an art form. It really is. It's about finding that balance between structure and creativity, but don't let the structure hinder your creativity at all. If free-form writing is how you live, then get in there and write the story and worry about the structure later. Don't let structure hold you back or formatting or anything like that. If you got people like me, you have other people around that can really help you with your format if that's a place that you need help. Now, it's where the technical meets the imaginative. And that, my friends, is the beauty of it. It is great. Now, next week, we'll dive deeper into the world of screenplay formatting, a topic that's both essential and often misunderstood. So this was just a brief kind of introduction to it. But next week, I'll really get into it and kind of describe a little bit of the things that kind of help you there. But until then, God, keep writing, keep dreaming, and remember that every great story starts with a single word on a page. All right, so the writing action, more of a gift to you. Go over the formatting basics guide that I've provided for free. I have a nice PDF, free PDF. It's a one-page PDF just to kind of take a look, even if you need a refresher on things. It has a page of script, a finished script, and it kind of goes over the elements for, really kind of get you ready for the next episode. You can download it at the episode page, thescriptmistress.com/scene51. Use this guide to go over any scripts you've already started. Now, we all started from the beginning at some point, so please feel free to share some of your thoughts or ask questions, please. I've tried to build a really good community of writers that join me every month to write. But if you're just starting out, this is a great place, a good place, really, really informative place for you. Ink to Screen is on Facebook, or you can always email me at amber@thescriptmistress.com to get extra help. Now, don't forget to sign up for the next 5-page 5-page screenplay challenge happening this month in just a week or two at thescriptmistress.com/ink to screen. Now, if you're listening to this episode down the line, check it out. Go to Ink to Screen and see when the next one is starting. I'm pretty sure we'll have something ready for you guys. Thank you for tuning in to the Script Mistress podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, remember to subscribe and share it with fellow writers. I'm the Script Mistress, and I'll see you next week as we continue our journey into the art of screenwriting. I truly value any feedback. If you have an idea for a podcast that might help, you can email me at amber@thescriptmistress.com. Like and follow this show wherever you are listening. Talk soon. And until then, happy writing.